Hi there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello and welcome to the Being Human Hidden Depths podcast with me, myself, Jill Tiny, and my latest guest, Mr. Mark Walmsley. Welcome, Mark. Lovely to have you on board.
Thank you very much. That's a nice title for the talk. Was it Hidden Depths?
Yes.
Oh, love that.
The idea, just to reiterate, everyone will have heard a little earlier snippet from me saying what Hidden Depths is all about, but we're all human, aren't we? And we all have this kind of facade that we put on. How's business? It's fine. It's great. Everything's okay. We're underneath. You're paddling like crazy to stay afloat. And what we want from these conversations is the grit. You know, the how you got to where you were before, and you know how you moved on. And I don't want the CV of like when I left school and I had 2 GCSEs, or in your case, in my case, it's O levels probably. I don't want all of that kind of stuff. I want the real journey and the real story of you being a human being. So we're peeling the layers of your onion, if that's okay. And if we get too deep on the onion, you can tell me to shut up and go away. But let's find out what the real Mark Walmsley is about. Okay, so you and I met through your fabulous ACN network, Arts and Culture Network. Now, for me, arts and culture are my lifeblood. Although I came along to your network online, God bless COVID, because so much went online and we were able to explore so many more things. And I don't technically, I'm not an actor or a singer or a dancer or a creative an artist or anything like that, although it's in my genes. And I think it's in everybody's blood somewhere along the line. And you went, do you know what, that's all right, come, because you probably know a few people and you can help people. And so I did, and I did what I could do to help. But it just struck me that if anyone needs support and help in this world at this time, and we met kind of COVID times when the arts were struggling and probably still are having the effect of being shut down for such a long period of time, when all of the things they do are based on momentum of energy, of getting people to shows, getting people to galleries, getting people to events. And it was all, and it must have been so scary at that time. So my question to you, just to start the ball rolling, is why? Why the Arts and Culture Network for you? What was your connection that made you go, I think I should do something here?
That's a great question, because my background is in music, brand and marketing, and I had detours into pharmaceutical marketing, biotech, medtech. Wow. And having studied music and worked as a classical musician, I then found myself, I was sort of captured by digital in the early 90s, and that took me off that music path, really. It was the fastest running horse at the time, back in the 90s. And I was a very early adopter of LinkedIn. Right. I was one of the first 100,000 users, apparently, which is nuts when you think it's over 1 billion now, which gave me quite a following, which was really very useful. And then in 2009, LinkedIn allowed people to start groups. So I thought, well, I want eventually to get back into where I need to be, back in the arts and culture and music sector. So I started the Arts and Culture Network as a LinkedIn group in 2010. I promptly forgot all about it. Went off and did more marketing and branding work, and looked at it as we were approaching lockdown and thought, there are 18,000 people in this group. Gosh. None of whom have met. Nobody's corresponded. Nobody has had the opportunity to collaborate. So I decided then because we all were getting used to Zoom, I thought, well, why don't I host a just a networking event and see if anybody wants to come. And they did.
Wow.
So that was back in, when did we go in? God, that's 3-4 years ago
Yeah,
now.
2020, wasn't it? I think February, March time, 2020.
But it gave me the opportunity. I'm not shy of the spotlight. I've hosted events. I've been told I've done those things, so I'm not afraid the leader in those circumstances. So it made me realize that, I mean, my life is based around finding out where my super passion, I call it my super passion. It's a cross between your superpower and your passions. And my superpower evidently seems to be connecting people for good. And my passion has always been music, arts, and culture. So not that I'm a particularly well-informed or adept practitioner in any of those disciplines. I just seem to be, I love it. And so those two things have come together in the last few years. And so now my side hustle has accidentally become my main hustle, which is great. And I love it. So it was really to make the most of my capacity to create connections, but to do so in a sector that I love. And it was heartwarming during lockdown to hear the messages and the feedback. Thank you for doing this. It's reduced my sense of isolation, and I've been able to get advice in very difficult times. So yeah, and we're coming out of it now. It's still staggers me that the arts and culture sector is the best place to save the world.
Yes.
Makes more money for the UK Treasury than sport does.
Right.
Yet and our exports are phenomenal, the Beatles. So it does frustrate me that it's not recognized in the same way as other sectors are. But things are changing. Things are changing. So that's why, because I just wanted to help others. We have a motto in our gang, which is choose people who will say your name in a room full of opportunities. And that's how we roll. And the success stories are wonderful. And it's pleasing for me looking back on those success stories, realizing that actually you guys wouldn't have met and done that had I not done this back then. And so, yeah, and I can sit here hosting these Zoom meetings well into my retirement. I'm very happy. So.
But yeah, there's so many things that bundled into that little conversation. One, and I would put a pin in this, but I'll come back to it. You're in the classical music business. I didn't realize you're a classical musician, so I'm very intrigued by that. But two, I think going back, there's the two sides of it, is that the government and a lot of people don't realize the intrinsic value of the arts. It's good for your well-being, it's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical health. I mean, you listen to any singer, if they don't have lung capacity and are able to belt it out, that is feeding their whole system. There was so much, the NHS would save an absolute fortune if more people were involved in singing and dancing and all of those kind of things. So this whole industry that, as you say, creates more income for the Treasury than sport, which we go, oh, sport's very good for us, sport's very healthy, but it's competitive, which isn't great for the toxins in your body. It's also quite poorly funded, where everyone's trying desperately to, if you're an amateur at any sport, it takes forever to get any income to become professional at it. So there's these dichotomies along the way. So my question to you is, when you started that back in 2020, going, let's get these people together and see what happens, had you any kind of concept in the back of your mind that what you were doing was kind of life-saving from a point of view of, there were people out there that were scared, there were people out there that didn't know where to turn, and there were people that were out there that found your community that you had just kind of gone, oh, well, there's a few people over here, let's drag them together and see what we can do. You were a lifeline to so many people at that point.
Well, in a very small way, a very real lifeline, because one of the things we do with our membership revenue, and we don't have a huge amount yet. We have, I think, just under 300 full members. But it's always been my intention that we would get to a point where we can start giving most of that revenue away.
Yeah, I'm like that.
But to do so in rather like the Arts Council, but with no application form.
Yes, I love
So
that.
the idea is if a member thinks something deserves support, and if enough of us agree,
Yeah.
here's the money, go and make your art. And we've already started doing that. One of our members, and she moved from, she's a very talented arts marketer and administrator, and she moved from South Africa to Canada with her 5-year-old son and husband. And in the process, negated her medical insurance in both countries,
Ah,
only to find out that she had a very rare form of breast cancer.
oh my goodness.
And so I was able to siphon off some of our membership revenue and contribute that to the fundraiser that her sister had started.
Wow.
She raised over $100,000.
Gosh.
She accessed the really quite specific medication that she needed.
Mm,
And I spoke to her about 3 weeks ago, and she's doing really well. So,
that's a good story.
in
Yeah.
yeah, and I often tell our members, if they're full members, I say, you don't know this, but you've helped that. You've helped
Mm,
feed 7-year-old orphan dancers in Kampala. You've
yeah.
you've helped support a member who was shafted by a promoter to cover their legal fees. So we are doing that in a very at a low level already. I
Yeah.
coined the phrase uh, democratic collective philanthropy, and
Yes.
that's how it works. So, but I didn't really quite see that vision at the start. I thought it would be a couple of Zoom meetings during lockdown, and that would be it. But given that we now have 152,000 members
Gosh.
across 8 LinkedIn groups, we know we've hit the establishment radar because we were one of the answers in a multiple choice survey by the Arts Council.
Hey.
But as I say, it's early days yet. The full membership option is entirely optional. So and we've kept it very low so that it's
Mm.
open to students and anyone who's unemployed.
But you can't help but cross your mind if 150,000 people were full members, how much you'd be spending your days doing good all day long, wouldn't you?
I know. My neighbour said to me, "How many members have you got?" And I said, 152,000. And he said, "Well, if they all paid you £1 a year, you'd be all right, and you'd be
Yeah,
able to support people." But we're on target to get to about 2,000 members by the end of the decade if we keep growing at the same rate.
yeah,
So that will mean we've got the best part of £20,000 to donate every month,
yeah. That's
which
amazing.
it's kind of a little from many means a lot to one. That's the process we've got. So,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's there are more and more people doing that, which is what I love. I've said this before on the podcast. There's a guy called Ricardo Semler over in Brazil. I haven't checked up on him lately. He might not even be around anymore, but he did a TED talk years ago. And in it, he talks about a friend of his who was, a well-off, successful entrepreneur. And he came to him one day and said, Ricardo, I've done very well with my life. It's time for me to give back. And Ricardo turns around to him and says, if you're giving back, you took too much in the first place. And I'm like, this is a really good point. And I think more and more people now are giving as they go. And it's having that kind of, well, if I'm getting some money in, then I'm going to give some money out and I'm going to see who I can help. So that's
mm,
why we've buddied up. We partnered up with B1G1, as if you've come across them.
mm,
So every time we have a new member, a part of their membership goes to B1G1 every single month, which can be sent out to hundreds of different charities across the world. And our members get to choose. It's like, well, what do you want to do this month? We can have clean water in a village in Africa, or you can have educational supplies, and it's all to do with sustainable development goals. So we can choose a goal, and then we can look at all the charities that are connected to that goal, and then choose how many impacts we're going to make. And
mm.
we've made thousands of impacts over the year already, just because little bit, as you say, little bit, as you go. We don't miss it so much. It's not the end of the world. And the more the membership grows, the more we can make bigger impacts along the way. And the same thing you say, when we hit that kind of sustainable number of members, then anything over that becomes money that they can come to us and go, what, I've done my pro bono and they can't afford me, and I'm like, well, they have some money, go do some good in the world. And
Mm.
that springs from the time when I was asked to do some work in Hackney, and this guy said, oh, there's going to be a government grant and we'll be able to do this work, and there were 5 of us are going to go into Hackney to work with young people that wanted to be entrepreneurs, and we're going to kind of set them off on their first job career, and we didn't get the grant, so they all disappeared. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
those people are still there. Can we not do? There must be some. And I was like, one day I'm not going to go cap in hand to anybody. I'm going to be able to give money out and get money for those kind of things where we know we can make a difference, because
Mm.
the talent that we've had all this time, we can share it. So when you've got people in your community that go, oh, if only, and you know that you can help, it's such a good feeling. And that's the power of organizations like yours.
I think also there is. I'm not passionate. I'm passionate about access. I wrote a blog post, and I think I was in it. I said the best violinist the world ever saw never picked up a violin,
Right.
and you could say that about all sorts of disciplines in life.
Yeah.
They just weren't given the opportunity.
Yes.
So one of the members of our gang is the East London School of Music, and
Right.
I've been helping them because they just need more instruments. And if they can, because they specialize in providing music lessons at ridiculously low cost to families in East London who wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about access and opportunity. There's a lovely saying: talent is everywhere, opportunity is not.
Mm.
And that's one of the things I'm hoping as we grow, we'll be able to address.
Mm. And I think what my dream is in the future is that organizations like ours, as we join up and we become members of each other's organization and we share our knowledge and our experience and vice versa, that people in authority who probably are not doing the best job at the moment might be able to look over and go, they seem to be doing okay. They seem to be utilizing their money efficiently. They seem to be doing a lot of good. And we'll go, well, come over here and we'll show you how it's done
Mm. Yeah.
one day.
Mhm.
What's the date today? 2025. So yeah, well, let's watch this space and see how we go with that.
Yeah.
Um, I love this what was it you said? Democratic philanthropy
Democratic collective philanthropy.
collective, yeah. This is a new way for communities to come together, and it's because we now have the technology. And I think the cream is rising to the top from the point of view of most people want to do good, most people want to help each other. And so when you put them all together, as Mother Teresa tells us, or told us in a famous quote, together we can do something wonderful.
Mm.
And I think that's you're demonstrating that beautifully. So now I have to ask you, what instrument did you play if you're a musician?
I started playing the drums when I was 7 years old.
Oh, bet you were popular.
Yeah, upturned saucepans on my bed with my mother's utensils.
Excellent.
And when I kept having lessons with my drum teacher, and he said you should go and apply for a place at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London.
Mm,
I got one of 3 places from 50 applicants, and I thought, oh well, perhaps I ought to take this a bit more seriously. And I had a wonderful 3 years there.
mm,
And towards the end of my third year, I got a West End show to do, and I'd already started playing in the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra as well.
wow.
And I taught. So I had a nice. I'd also started an entertainment agency as well at the time. So I had one of those. I had a portfolio career in the late 80s.
You had many strings to your bow, if you pardon the pun.
Literally, yes. So yeah, and I guess what I've done ever since is I've gradually transitioned from one sort of part of my career to another without having to stop and start again, which I know is a leap of faith for many people. I've spoken to many people who
Yeah.
are thinking of chucking in their city job and becoming an artist. And but I've been fortunate in that I've been able to sort of move from one faster running horse to the next fastest running horse, and that took me through digital. I had a web design agency which employed 16 people in the 90s and early 2000s, and the entertainment agency was great fun as well in the kind of late 80s, early 90s. I organised all the entertainment at Harrods for 10 years.
Wow.
Which was great fun, booking Father Christmas and closing Knightsbridge so that we could do a parade, that kind of thing.
Gosh.
And that was great fun. I mean, that was just one of those business moments, which was like a gem, because I was sitting in the the student union office at the Guildhall, having been appointed as the social secretary. And I read Cain and Abel by Jeffrey Archer, and I thought,
Yeah.
I want to start a business. What shall I do? And I thought, well, I'm in a music college. Perhaps I should represent these other musicians. And by complete coincidence, the phone rang, and I picked the phone up, and it was someone from Estee Lauder. And they wanted a pretty young harpist to play on their promotion stand on the ground floor at Harrods for the 2 weeks on the run up to Christmas.
Right.
So I thought, well, well, I said, I can fix that for you, but I do charge a 15% commission. They said, that's no problem. So Music Plus was born.
Brilliant.
And I thought I'd better go in and check if everything was all right on the first day. And Mohammed Al Fayed walked into the department with his 4 bodyguards.
Oh, gosh.
And went over and spoke to the harpist, who then pointed at me. And I thought, oh. So he came over to me and he said, I gather you booked the music for the Estee Lauder promotion. I said, yes, sir, I did. You know, we all thought it was a perfectly normal sir at that point. And he said, come up to my office, please. I thought, what the hell have I done? You know, he sat me down in his office and he said, I love live music, and I think this is great. I'm going to require all 4 promotion areas on the ground floor to have live music as part of their promotions, and I'm going to insist that they book it through you. I went from 0 to about £5,000 a month. Gosh. As I walked out of Harrods. And that was just great. And that lasted for about 10 years. It was wonderful. And one of the pleasing things that I did, one of the things I remember was there was a jazz pianist, modern jazz pianist called Jonathan G, who I thought was great, really quite progressive and modern. And I rang him up and said, look, you won't want to do this. It's just like dinner jazz in the perfumery in Harrods. He said, no, I'll do it. So he did it. And his first CD came out and he sent me a copy, and it was dedicated to me, because and I rang him and said, why am I dedicated on your modern jazz trio CD? And he said, because you gave me the job that paid for the studio that we used to record that. So it comes around, you know. It's like that. So
well, you sound like a natural born entrepreneur. The fact that you were thinking in those ways back in those days, because when I was in sort of 70s and 80s, it was like, get a job, get your head down, get a salary at the end of it. But you were looking at opportunity and seeing what was out there, and right place, right time, for sure. But at the same time, if you hadn't picked the phone up, if you hadn't, thought on your feet and done those things.
Well, I did it slightly before that, and again afterwards, because before that I had a big transit van for my drums at college.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me that the students in London were all moving from flat to flat. And their parents up north didn't want to drive down and help them move. So I started the Gently Does It removal company while I was at college. And before that, even, my father used to run a mobile disco. Wow. He used to do all the Parents Association events at school. And he was asked if, I must have been about 17 at the time. He was asked if he wanted to become the resident disc jockey above the bowling alley on Southend Pier. And he said, no, I don't, but my son might. And so I did that. That was a first as well. But then digital really was a big eye opener. I sent my first email in 93, taught myself web design in 94, and set up the web design agency in 95. And again,
it was right time, right place, really.
Yeah, it was really. I get easily excited about new stuff, and I love being an early adopter. So just occasionally that means you're in the right place at the right time.
So were you one of these people that queue up for a new iPhone?
No, I'm not quite that bad. So,
yeah.
No.
So let's find out a little bit more about you from the point of view of where are you from, and who's at home with you at the moment? Who's family for you?
So I was born in Guildford in Surrey. I'm the eldest of three boys, and my father was offered a job. My mum was a PE teacher in Surrey,
Hmm.
and we moved to Hockley in Essex, not far from Southend,
Mm.
and where my mum became the swimming teacher at the primary school that I was going to, and my father was working at Ford's. He died in '85
Mm.
of lung cancer. Sadly, I was only about 23, I think, at the time.
Mm.
Um, and then I went to music college in London and then moved to Reigate after I got married, had two children. And then in 2010, my first wife and I separated, and I moved back to keep an eye on my mum in Hockley.
Mm.
Bumped into Joe, who I had grown up with in the same street as children.
Mm.
And we'd been married 7 years and together for 14 years now, I think.
Okay.
And it's a proper blended family. It's
Oh.
great. And we now have two grandchildren, so and I take Wednesdays off to spend with them.
Oh,
So
that's lovely. How old
yeah,
are they now?
Hallie is 2 and Alfie is 1.
Oh,
I'm considered quite brave taking them out on my own, but it just occasionally I took them out for ice cream, and this elderly lady, was sitting behind us on the seafront at Southend, and she said, "Can I just say it's lovely to see a man taking his children out for tea?" And I said,
yeah.
"I'm afraid you've got it wrong on two counts. One, they're not my children, and two, they're not technically my grandchildren, they're my step grandchildren." My father, my mum's father, my maternal grandfather,
Mm.
he was widowed and he remarried when he was 73 and
Gosh.
married a 36-year-old.
Wow.
Yes, and she's still alive.
Oh,
So I took my two step grandchildren to meet her. And we worked out the relationship. I said, "Mary, these are your step great grandchildren."
bless her. I bet she felt good after that. It's like, oh my goodness.
She, well, she could, because my stepmother, my step grandmother was younger than my mother.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Tricky.
I do keep warning my wife Jo that the fact that I've got form in my family. So
That's quite a complicated family tree to try and explain, isn't it,
it
to
is,
those
yeah. So
children?
we're in Hullbridge now. We downsized a couple of years ago when our last offspring moved out. Joe's done a fantastic job turning 60 square meters into 115 without extending.
Wow.
Um, and we love it down here. It's a lovely, friendly little village. And because Ferry Road stops at the river, people don't go through this village, they go to it. And we
Yeah.
have a pub on the river called the Smuggler's Den that has live music 4 nights a week. So it's about a 3-minute walk and about a 10-minute walk back.
That sounds a little bit of paradise right
Oh,
there,
it's
doesn't
just
it?
it's
So,
lovely.
do you perform at the Smugglers Inn?
I have done, yeah. We have every other Wednesday we do open mic. And if there's no drummer and they want one, I jump behind the kit. There's a kit permanently in the pub.
Yeah. So you're
On the
like,
stage.
hold me back. No,
Yeah.
all right, then I'll do it for you. Oh, that's brilliant. Our youngest, she learned to play the drums when she was about 11 or 12, and we converted a garage so we could put her out there and just knock yourself out, just have fun
Yeah.
with it. And she did, but she was one of these kids that loved playing. She played piano, ukulele, um, but didn't like people watching her and listening. So she just did it
Oh.
on her own. So you could hear her up in the bedroom sometimes, and it was really quite good. She never passed any exams in her piano, but
Mm.
because the first exam was so traumatic, she didn't want to do it again. I said, "Look, do you enjoy learning to play?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "So if we take away the exams, do you still want lessons?" She said, "Yes." I went, "Okay." So she never took a lesson, but her teacher would say to us, "Oh, she's about level grade 4 now. Oh, she's about grade 7. Oh, I think she's grade 8. If she wanted to take an exam, no, she doesn't. That's fine."
No, there's
So,
no reason why she should. I think one of the inspiring moments for me was when I was 9. My dad was going to take me to Ronnie Scott's to see Buddy Rich. Must have
oh,
been 1971. And he was called away on business. So my mum took me, and she was a bit daunted by heading into Soho in the early 70s.
different world from
Um,
now, isn't it? Yeah.
and at half time, I mean, the man was amazing. He was inspirational. And Ronnie Scott's is really quite intimate. So you're
Yeah.
quite close. and it was just fantastic. And Ronnie Scott came on at the interval to tell his blue jokes, and spotted a 9-year-old in the audience and called one of his girls over and said, take the young man backstage to meet Buddy.
No.
Yeah. And so I walked into this dressing room, and it was a mountain of a man sweating profusely. And he reached up and got some sticks down and gave them to me and said, if you can play a paradiddle on my knee, you can keep them. Right. So, but then what I loved was shortly before he died, and I've still got the sticks, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Shortly before he died, he played the Cliffs Pavilion in Southend. So we went again, and I know the backstage team there. So they got me backstage again during the interval. And I said, hello, Buddy. And he looked up, and I said, you won't remember this, but when I was 9, I met you at Ronnie Scott's at the interval. You gave me a pair of your sticks. And he reached for another pair, and he handed them to me, and he said, if your paradiddle has got faster, you can keep these. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was great. I loved it.
I loved it. I must admit, Ronnie Scott's is one of my favorite places to go. We went, there's like no talking during a performance, and blah blah blah. There's all these rules, and we went to see, me and my daughter, she got me tickets, and we went to see Earth, Wind and Fire. What's left of them now.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we were kind of wanted to get up and dance, because it's like that, but you're not allowed. It's not done. So they did about 3 or 4 songs, and all of a sudden one person stood up just over there, and I'm like, good enough for me.
Yeah.
Everybody did, and the place was jumping. It was just, and they carried on. And as they finished, and we all sort of calmed ourselves down, and they left the stage, I was able to shake every one of them by their hand and say, thank you so much. That's the best.
Yeah, because at Ronnie Scott's, there's no backstage. The changing room, you have to go to the front. You have to come through the audience to get to the changing room.
Yeah.
So yeah, wonderful moments.
Oh, we should do a event in London, shouldn't we, to get our mutual communities together. Collaboration Global and ACN, and let's have some music and have a party.
That would be a lovely idea. We just had our first New York face-to-face.
Oh, I remember you talking about that. How did it go?
Yeah. It was wonderful. It has me sitting in leafy rural riverside Holbridge Village in Essex, while over in Manhattan, 16 members are meeting each other. None of them had met before.
Oh,
they all went to Bobby Van's Grill in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And they FaceTimed me and sent me a video. So I sat back and I thought, whoa, that's just blowing my mind that 16 people have met for the first time and had a wonderful time. They all know me, but they've never met each other. We're doing another one on Valentine's, and I'd love to get there, but we're going to the Lincoln Centre on Valentine's for another one. We'll see.
Yeah, it's such a small world now, isn't it, when you think about it?
I think technically it is, because it used to be 6 degrees of separation, and it's now 5. Apparently,
less than that.
It could well be. Yeah.
I mean, the stories that I've heard of people that asking at a networking event for. One guy said he wanted Jamie Oliver because he did. In fact, he's another drummer. What's his name? It'll come to me in a minute. Paul, someone. Anyway, he asked for Jamie Oliver because he made tree houses. That was his.
Paul Cameron. He's a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for 40 years.
I thought it might have been along those lines. Well, he was a member of Collaboration Global.
Was he?
Yes, when we used to do face-to-face meetings. He would come along to that. And so his story is he asked for Jamie Oliver to build him a treehouse. And somebody in the group that he was in stood up at this general meeting and said, oh, well, I can do that for you. And, we've known each other for years. You never told me you knew Jamie Oliver. He said, well, you never asked. And then Jamie Oliver turned into Elton John, which turned into Al Fayed, which turned into Al Fayed's daughter. And basically, and then that turned into member of royalty. I don't know. It went big. He's now, sold so many tree houses to incredible people around the world. And his tree house is like, well, back then, I think that his started price was £60,000 up to about 300,000. So imagine now it's probably a ridiculous amount.
Yeah. Yeah, I've corresponded with him quite recently. He came down and stayed with us a few years ago.
Oh, he's a
Um,
lovely man.
and I
Yeah.
took him to the BNI meeting that I went to in Billericay, and he told the story there. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great story. Just got to be brave and do it.
Well, this is it. If you don't ask, you don't get. And this 6 degrees of separation, I think it's more like 3 or 4. It's
Mm,
because it doesn't take long to work out, especially with people like you and me that have got a bit of not a following. We're connected and we've been doing this for donkey's years. So we know a lot of people. And once your brain clicks into, oh, he knows, and there you go, there's your link.
mm,
All you've got to do is a couple of hop, skips, and a jump, and you've got the person you're looking for. But a lot of people in business, especially if you've done web design and all of that, they don't know who they're looking for. So you're making a
mm,
website and you're not sure how it's going to be because the person who's asked you to make the website hasn't got a clue who, oh, I can sell to anybody. Yes, but who's your person, because you want your website to sound like it's speaking just to them. So
mm,
yeah, as a business coach, that's the sort of thing that I would sit down and talk to people about, is finding out who really are you selling to, or who do you want to sell to, because you don't want to sell to everybody. Yes, I do. I really, no, you don't actually, because not everyone's fun to work with. That you
mm,
might want to have fun. I had one guy I turned down because he wanted to be the best in the world. I mean, okay. He did events, okay, and there's only 2 major competitors in the world, and I want to beat them. I said, right, what happens? And he told me about these events he put on all around the world, and they had huge, uh, sort of the Millennium Dome. They have put events on in all the biggest stadiums in the world. I said, so what are you doing at the events? He said, well, we're selling, hardware. I said, oh, what sort of hardware? Who are your customers? He said, well, like the MOD and, government departments. I said, so what's the hardware? Well, tanks and rifles and guns. And no, I'm not. Why would I coach you to
mm.
sell more guns? I don't think so. So we
Yeah.
don't all want to work with everybody. We've got a line. We've got the people that we enjoy working with. So find more of those. Why would you want to work with someone just because they've got the money? That makes it a hard job.
Yeah, there is a common sense approach. I think Seth Godin said, find your smallest viable audience and become the best option for it.
Yeah.
And I've introduced that concept and minimalist marketing all over. So
Mm.
yeah, you can't boil the ocean.
No, exactly. Exactly. And we might only be a small drip within that ocean, but everything around us is connected. So
Mm.
let's attract the right people to us. And I think that's by you focusing on, I mean, you could say anyone can come to my community, and there are people that are not in the arts as an industry as such, like myself. I've come along and I might not be in the arts, but I get it, I understand it, and I can help those people within it.
Yeah, a really healthy percentage of the people in our community are those who support the practitioners and the professionals, and we need that help.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no reason why, there is so Kel Haney is one of our members. She's in Portland in Maine. She's a very, very good fundraiser for arts
Mm,
organizations.
wow.
And she doesn't perform, she doesn't play, she doesn't write. She's not a practitioner in that respect, but she's really, really good. And we need that kind of support, especially now. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is finding those people. I mean, to be fair, I do sing and I do act, but nobody would pay me any money for it. It's not my day job for sure. But I do write. I have people pay me money to write. That's what I love doing as well. So I think we've all got it in us. And I think I can't reiterate this enough. If you haven't got any part of the arts in your life, then your health is going to be suffering somewhere along the line. You need to find an outlet, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether any sort of creativity that is going to connect your soul, so
Yeah.
that you can if, lift your heart to
Well,
what is beautiful.
I wanted to start an annual a day per year, probably since Cecilia's Day in November, because she was the patron saint of music, apparently. But in which music is banned for the whole day.
Oh gosh.
So what will we not have? We won't have television. Would be pretty boring.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be no radio. There'll be no concerts. You can't listen to Spotify. You can't, if you took it out for the whole day.
Oh, I'd be crying.
Oh,
I've even got it in the background now. You can't hear it because this
mm,
microphone cuts it out, but I've got music going on in the background as we're talking
yeah.
now.
Well, it saved my life. Well, I had a cancer scare a couple of years ago, and
Mm,
I created a joy playlist, which of pieces that I knew would get the hairs up on the back of my neck.
yeah,
And if music can have that kind of physical impact on you through your
yeah,
brain, then what else can it do? And I have no empirical evidence to suggest that it helped, but it certainly made me feel better.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, yeah.
It's the same when I go to theatre. We love musical theatre. And I like to go once a month if I can, because it's like a fix, it's like a drug. Because the minute you sit there and that overture goes on, like you say, hairs on the back of your neck goes like, right, whew, and I'm getting this whoosh energy. And if I walk out of that show and I'm singing and I remember the tune, and it's like, yeah, this is going to stay with me for at least a month.
Mm,
And it just makes you 10 feet taller. It's just a
mm.
shame you got to go into London all the time. We're lucky we live near Chichester, so we can pop into there and see a show over there.
You'll get it before the West End does normally, won't
Yeah,
you? Yeah.
yeah, and we get the great reviews and a lot cheaper as well,
Mm.
which is handy. But it is like it should be a drug. It should be on prescription. It's definitely, as you say. I mean, most babies come into the world with a playlist, don't they?
Mm.
They're set up to come into this world with enjoying something that their parents already think is amazing.
Absolutely. And there's a lovely saying, before a child um, talks, she sings. Before a child walks, she dances.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all that creativity is there first.
And we
So,
see that in our grandchildren, don't we? I mean, we've got one that we've got three. One's a 2-year-old and two that are under 6 months. But they hear music and they're like this. And the one that's just turned 2, she's just learning how to sing the words of Jingle Bells, and she's so happy that she knows them, and she knows when she punch the air with the ho kind of. It's just so
yeah,
lovely to see this, and dancing. Oh my goodness, she can't sit still. So,
yeah,
and she into the Moana soundtrack. That's the big thing at the moment. She has to have
yeah.
the Moana
My Hallie
soundtrack.
is as well, and Frozen, all over Frozen.
Yes.
And strangely, Dear Evan Hansen, she loves that
Okay.
as well, which is great. So,
Yeah, that's good. I
and
can't wait.
Jolene, she's a big fan of Dolly Parton as well.
I can't wait to take them to the theatre. It's something that they will they don't get to choose. They're going to have to love it. There's no
Mm.
option. I mean, my husband had never been to a show before. I went out with him, and he's like, "Oh, do I have to?" And my daughter's husband was like, "Oh, it's a musical," but we took them to the right ones, and that's it now. They're done. My husband's favorite is now Les Mis, and he goes every so often, and he cries all the time. And we were lucky enough to have a private concert with Russell Watson on a recent holiday,
Mm.
and he did a song from Les Mis, and you just look around the room and everyone is like, "Oh, this is so good." You can't
Mm.
help yourself, but it touches something within you, doesn't it? It's like a piece of art.
Mm.
It touches something within you, and it does you good. Does you good. That's all you can say. So I think what you're doing is beautiful, and I think bringing these people together, whether they are conductors of a philharmonic, music writers, singers, artists, sculptors, so many different types of people, but they all connect in a way that they're meant to be together, because
And
they
we don't
get what's
require,
there.
yeah, and we don't require language to the same extent as other sectors.
That's true.
With music and art and dancing, there's a saying, isn't there? That's about as crazy as talking about music is like dancing about architecture. You don't need it doesn't need the language, and
Yeah,
I love it when there are opportunities for the recipient of that or to take part in that process. So if I ever see some abstract art, I'm looking for what? I'm looking for the horses in there. I'm looking for the things that the artist didn't intend.
yeah,
And I love that when that works. Because I feel part of the creative process because that's what I'm taking away from the picture.
yeah,
So I've
exactly.
come up with a new phrase called picture hook. When I'm doing branding and marketing advice for artists and trying to find them how they're going to be special and
Mm.
different, I ask them, "What's your picture hook?" And they, yeah, good. So Rossi is an abstract oceanic artist. That's her picture hook now.
Right.
working for her. So
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, I can imagine that. It's it's that individuality about it, isn't it? That's what's so beautiful. You can't recreate when everyone's got their own special way. Do you know what? I'm going to go and paint a picture for the first time since I was at school with my daughter. We've got a class to go to, and it's like it's supposed to keep you very calm. We'll see how that works. But yeah, I'm going to go and do some painting. Be interesting. Um, before you go, Mark, I usually ask this of people. When you were little, when you were about 7 or 8, I guess I'm thinking you're going to tell me the drums. But what was a happy memory for you? What can you think back on that is something um, that you remember as a really good time for you?
I think it would have been the first time I went on an aeroplane was when I was 7. We flew
Mm,
from Southend Airport to somewhere in where was it? It would have been in the Netherlands or Belgium, I think. Ostend. Ostend.
right. Yeah.
Um, and it felt like a round the world trip, you know. But I remember I've got 2 younger brothers, and so we all piled into it. There was this sort of dummy town in which children could drive four-wheeled bicycles,
Oh,
and that was just, wonderful because my father used to put me on his lap and let me steer.
yes.
This is like unsafe late 60s, no,
Yeah, I did that as well. Yeah.
yeah. So that was a very fond memory. But yeah, drums. I can remember the day, I was probably a bit older than that, when I decided that classical music was going to be my career. I can remember what we were playing, the Circus Polka by Stravinsky, and I thought, yeah, I'm enjoying this is me, which was great. And then I can remember the day I saw the web in color for the first time, and I thought, change of direction there. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
really interesting to hear you talk about those things that happen that we kind of taken for granted, like, creating your websites and being around to, I mean, it didn't even cross my mind that I could be the person that could help people create a website. It just kind of been by osmosis. I guess I was off busy having babies or something at that point. But to hear you say that and to hear you sort of go through that aeroplane adventure, that trip that you remember, that was kind of your for me looking back at your life is like the signaling of you want some adventure in your life and you were looking out for it. You were ready and you go, I like that. I like this is interesting. I like that. I'm going to have some of that. So for you to decide at a young age that, yeah, this drumming thing, this could be really useful.
mm,
Not many kids really kind of hone in on it. What I find with a lot of people with their happy early memories is you can join the dots and see why they are who they are today.
mm.
And you've got so many dots, for goodness sake. They're all over the place,
Well,
but
I
they are a
live by
matrix.
I kind of live by the motto, you should always regret the things you did, not the things you didn't do. And you it might not work out as you'd hoped. But if you don't know, if you don't try, you'll never know.
Yeah,
If I had not started this group 14 years ago on LinkedIn,
yeah.
um, then I wouldn't be doing this now. So if I hadn't sold my web design agency, I might still be in that. Unfortunately, I sold it at the beginning of 2008, just before the recession. So I
Wow.
was able to take 2 years off while everyone else was worrying about money. And
Oh,
that was
good
just
timing.
accidental timing. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, we did some accidental timing, great timing when we just downsized during lockdown. We couldn't do it now. We wouldn't get enough for the house, the big house, and we wouldn't have been able to afford this one. But uh,
Mm,
and literally, our last mortgage payment was the first one that went up. So we were very
yeah.
accidentally perfect. And then the war started, and then the cost of living crisis, and it all just started piling on after we
Mm.
sold the house. So accidentally good timing, I think.
Well, it sounds like you're blessed. And you're probably blessed because of the wonderful things that you do and the people that you help. And knowing that you've got ACN and the income from that, that you're able to support some of these people that need your help. I think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for chatting to us today, Mark. If somebody wants to get hold of you, find out more about ACN, or even if they want some branding done for their business, what's the easiest way to get hold of you?
Markwalmsley.co.uk. So that's WALMSLEY is the website for the branding and marketing work that I do. If you search Arts and Culture Network, you will find us. So it's artsandculturenetwork.com, but literally, if you search Arts and Culture Network, we're there.
And you have loads of meetings all over the place, don't you, for people to
Yeah,
do?
my days are like a world tour on Zoom. It's great.
Oh, lovely.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll be joining you very soon on one of those. But thank you so much for the meantime. And of course, if you want to meet Mark, he's also a member of Collaboration Global, and he'll be popping into some of our guest meetings as well. So if you want to come to any of our Collaboration Global guest sessions, just go to Eventbrite and search for Collaboration Global, or go to collaborationglobal.com. And you will find a place where you can book on and find us as well, with lots of other members, as well as lots of guest speakers and fun along the way. Because if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. Thank you again, Mark. It's been really good fun chatting to you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jill. It's been great fun. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.